Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of the MFFL Nation Show. I am your host, Mason, aka MFFL Nation, and I appreciate you all for tuning in today. I'm going to be talking about a lot of new Mavericks information that has come out in the past few days. Some very exciting stuff, so I appreciate you all for tuning in. I will be solo today, and just to get it off the bat, I'm really excited about Cooper Flagg. He's about to be a Maverick. We're less than a week away until the NBA draft, so no more tweeting excitement about when he's becoming a Maverick. We're actually going to see him as a Maverick. We're just a few weeks away from NBA Summer League as well, when we'll first see Cooper Flagg play for the Mavericks organization. So a lot of exciting stuff there, but we're going to get right into it. A very, very hot topic in the last 48 to 72 hours. Shams was on the Pat McAfee show and said that Anthony Davis right now on an open market could fetch you around 4 to 5 first round picks. And of course, it caused this whole ruckus on Twitter, or what some people like to say X. And it's caused a debate on whether or not the Dallas Mavericks should try trading away Anthony Davis, collecting picks in order to start building around Cooper Flagg's future, or do you try the two timeline route? Do you keep Anthony Davis? Do you keep Kyrie Irving? And you try to win a championship with Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and Cooper Flagg and the remaining players on the roster? It's something very interesting, something that we're going to dive into right now. I don't think Shams was saying that there has been teams that are willing to give up 4 or 5 first-round picks. But with the recent trades of someone like Desmond Bane, who the Grizzlies just traded away and received 4 first-round picks, can the Mavericks do something similar? Personally, I understand both sides. I will give my answer to what they want to do at the end of this topic, but I do see both sides because you want to build around Cooper Flagg. The Mavs have a solid young core right now, nothing too big, but you have young players like Cooper Flagg, you have a Derek Lively, you have a Max Christie, and then you have those guys in their middle 20s where it's guys like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Brandon Williams. I know someone that we wouldn't really bring up before what he just did this past season near the second half of this season, but that is someone who's relevant now to this roster. So do you build around that young core, or do you try to win a championship now where you still have in my opinion, a very good roster right now, but you're not really allowing yourself to maximize the full potential of this team once Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving retire? Now, if Anthony Davis were to get you 4 to 5 first round picks, what does that exactly mean? That changes the landscape of Cooper Flagg's career, in my opinion. You look at what a team like the Knicks did. They traded away 5 first round picks, and the Nets are now stacked with picks. You look how the Oklahoma City Thunder have all these first round picks stacked and stacked and stacked forever. The Houston Rockets have a bunch of first as well. So do you want to go that route of saying, okay, we don't really mind maximizing what we do the next few years. We're really focused on the next 15 to 20 because Cooper Flagg is that franchise piece. As smart as that really sounds, I don't really foresee that happening because we do have to remember who the general manager is. That is Nico Harrison. Now, obviously, a lot has changed, but we do have to remember that when this Anthony Davis and Luka Doncic trade first went down, Nico Harrison did say that the Mavericks championship window was in the 3 to 4 year spot. Assistant Mavericks GM Matt Riccardi even said on the Studio 41 podcast that championship window has expanded since the Mavericks were able to land the first overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. But at the end of the day, Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont, those are the guys making the calls, not Matt Riccardi. And as much as we all agree with Matt Riccardi, Nico Harrison, I think we can tell by now he doesn't care about other people's opinions too much. He wants the credit for winning. He wants to be the person that people praise when the Mavericks do win a championship, if the Mavericks win a championship. And there's no other way around it. Personally speaking, I get everyone about how they feel about the two timeline window. We've seen it with the Warriors. We've seen it many times in the past, and it doesn't tend to work out. In my opinion, I think you can say this about anything, but I do feel like this is mildly different. We're talking about Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis. I get Kyrie's going to be coming off an ACL tear. I get Anthony Davis was injury prone in the past, but if you really want to go into the specifics, Anthony Davis just had his two healthiest seasons of his career in a pretty long time. And on top of that, I don't want to cause too much ruckus. You guys know I'm a big Luka guy. Love Luka. We'll always support and watch him. We'll watch a lot of Laker games next year just because of how much I love him as a player. Anthony Davis has been more available than Luka Doncic in the last 2 years, statistically speaking. So I don't think the whole injury-prone excuse really works that well. Again, I know that's going to anger some people, but that's just the truth. You can look at the numbers, and you can't tell me I'm wrong. But I get the concerns. I do think, though, when you look at this team, Nico Harrison is a firm believer in the two big lineup. So now with that, you have Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. Cooper Flagg, which is going to lead us into our next topic. Cooper Flagg is very capable of playing not only the three, but at sometimes playing the two. And that's something that Jason Kidd has mentioned that we may see when Cooper Flagg is a Maverick. And I won't be shocked if we see Cooper Flagg play the two. Heck, I won't be shocked if we see Cooper Flagg play the one at some points until Kyrie Irving returns from injury. Guys, we saw Najee Marshall play point guard. Who would have thought at the beginning of last season that we would be saying Najee Marshall would be the starting point guard for the Dallas Mavericks in a play-in tournament game? So anything can happen. I do think we've seen an insane amount of people preach about the fact that the most underrated aspect of Cooper Flagg's game is his playmaking. So you don't want to rush him into any of this, but I do think that with the way this Mavericks roster is structured right now, I think it could all work out. I do think that if you stick with this two timeline situation, I would say give it until the 27-28 season. Because we're realistically looking at this, Kyrie Irving's not going to be playing basketball until 2026 on the floor with the Dallas Mavericks at least. The first month or two of that is minutes restriction. The first few months of it is just getting back on your feet, getting used to the flow of the game, getting back into shape physically, mentally. In a good way, a lot of people have said before, Kyrie likes to take his time with his injuries. He's a guard in his 30s. This isn't something that you just want to rush overnight. He's going to be recovering from this injury for a long time. So I do think coming in to this season, obviously every single fan is going to have the expectation that come playoff time, the Dallas Mavericks should be competing for a championship. I don't know if that's the most realistic thing. I think the Mavs' best shot at winning a championship is going to be that 26-27 season. And if that season doesn't work out, I think that's where you sort of try to build as much as you can off of Cooper Flagg's future. I think that's where you really start to focus on, okay, our focus is purely on Cooper. We have a good young core with Cooper, Lively, Max. You have those guys who will be in their high 20s at the time, like PJ and Gaff, Najee. So I would like for the Mavericks to gut it out for a few more years with this two timeline approach. I also don't think that Nico Harrison, look, Nico Harrison traded away Luka Doncic, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of player, a kind of player that organizations dream of acquiring or drafting in the draft. And sometimes they never get the luck to get those kind of players, for Anthony Davis. And I don't think Nico Harrison is just going to say, okay, we got Cooper Flagg, now we're going to just trade Anthony Davis. No. Like I said earlier in this episode, Nico Harrison is very big, obviously, on wanting to get the credit for these kind of situations. So that's why I personally don't see any situation where Anthony Davis gets traded within the next 2 years. I just don't see it happening. Same with Kyrie. I would personally love for Kyrie to retire a Maverick. Um, I know a lot of people are negative on Anthony Davis. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was just a part of the worst trade in NBA history. Not player-wise, but just return-wise. But I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. But you look at this and you say, okay, we have Anthony Davis, we have Kyrie Irving, and we have the best American prospect since LeBron James. You are capable of winning a championship. Now, we discussed this on last episode with Noah Weber. How are you able to win a championship when you have to go through OKC? You have to have multiple ball handlers. So this is nowhere saying that the Mavericks are set up to win right now just because they got Cooper Flagg. No, there are a few glaring holes still in this team that have to be fixed, something that we're going to dive into more in this episode. But I do want to end off saying that personally, I do want the Dallas Mavericks to keep Anthony Davis for multiple reasons. The tanking doesn't work anymore. You want to be in a winning situation. If you trade Anthony Davis, the Mavericks have a crap record for majority of I would say the first half of the season. I do think that this team can be very competitive in a playoff format. I don't think it's worth it yet. There is no reason to blow it up. I think that regardless of if you got Cooper Flagg or not, you want to focus on the season right now. You have Cooper Flagg. Your future is set with that. Don't rush this whole thing just because you got him. Try to win a championship still right now. Because if you can go into the playoffs with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis as your two leaders, anything is possible. And you have a guy like Klay Thompson. So all those guys have serious championship accolades. I'm not trading away any of those guys. I'm giving it 2 years and seeing what you can do with this roster on top of just getting Cooper Flagg. But that goes into our next segment where we discuss, should Cooper Flagg play shooting guard or small forward? It has been a massive, massive topic since the Mavericks landed the first overall pick about should they trade PJ Washington? Since Cooper Flagg is coming in, is he going to be taking too much of his minutes and whatnot? This is all really interesting stuff in my opinion, but we got some really cool news today, which I'm going to be showing you guys right now. Noah Weber, a friend of mine, the site expert at the Smoking Cuban, said, I'm told that Cooper Flagg was unreal in his workout with the Dallas Mavericks yesterday. A leak source indicated that he shot the ball insanely well and called him a complete beast. He was even better than I expected him to be. And then also, Mark Stein with the LLS Mavs. Impressive, that's just all I kept hearing. I have to say the early rumbles I've heard that, shot looks pretty damn good from what they're saying on the streets. So, what does that basically entail? Does this mean Klay Thompson goes to the bench? No, but I think this allows the Mavericks to have possibly, I'm not saying I think this is going to happen. I think it's a possibility, though. I think the Mavericks could go out on opening night with we don't know who the starting point guard is going to be. I have no idea if they're going to get a vet minimum guy, if they're going to trade in the first round and get another late first round pick, if they're going to, I don't want to hint too much at the last segment of this episode, but if they're going to trade for a certain Bulls guard or something like that, we have no idea what's going to happen yet. But after that point guard position, do you start with opening night where Cooper Flagg's at the 2, PJ Washington's at the 3, Lively at the 4, or AD at the 4 and Lively at the 5? Or do you come to realization that PJ Washington is a better 4 than 3 and just keep him on the bench? And still, I personally think putting Flagg at the 3 to start would be the smartest thing to do. But I do think he's capable at starting at shooting guard. I think we see a mix of both, but it will be interesting to see where he starts on opening night. Too early to tell. I think that's something that the Mavs are going to really put an emphasis on in I'm assuming 1 to 2 games that he plays in Summer League. Having him play the wing a lot, having him take control of the ball, lead the offense, see what he's capable at this young age. We have to remember, Cooper Flagg was 11 days short of not being eligible due to age reasons for this draft. So, I mean, you can't put too much pressure on him, but at the same time, he's the first overall pick. He's the best American prospect since LeBron James, like I said earlier. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. But I do think Cooper Flagg, there will be times in games that he is playing the shooting guard position. Again, I think we saw that PJ struggled a lot after the Luka trade playing the three. I don't think he was comfortable whatsoever playing the three, especially after having such a dominant second half of the season in the Mavericks 23-24 run, playing the four, seeing what he was capable of doing. Again, something I've discussed before defensively as well. He's better off guarding guys like LeBron, a Chet, all the dominant fours he's better at guarding. The Mavericks were putting him in a position last year where he was having to guard SGA and Anthony Edwards. That's not the kind of style that PJ Washington plays defensively. He's a tough defensive player. He likes being in the paint, grabbing tough rebounds. He's a solid perimeter defender, but he contributes way more on the interior end. And that's why I think would be smart if PJ were to come off the bench. I do think there's obviously going to be times where he's playing the three, especially when Cooper's on the bench in games. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe PJ is training for specifically playing the small forward role this season, and he comes out, the agility is better, he can guard these guys better. But I think at the end of the day, you can't rely on PJ Washington to be your main point of attack defender on the guys like the SGAs, the Anthony Edwards, the Jamal Murrays, and stuff like that. I do think if the Mavericks do keep him, a perfect guy for that is Caleb Martin. I know you guys hate him. I know you do, but he is a very, very good point of attack defender. He can guard the SGAs, the Jamal Murrays, the Anthony Edwards, the Ja Morants, better than anyone on this roster probably. Another guy that can do it is Max Christie. And we'll see. There's this guy named Cooper Flagg that's pretty good at defense, supposedly. So just not having to rely on PJ too much defensively, because I do think, like I said, he's better off guarding the fours and being an interior defender more than a wing defender. We'll see how that all pans out. But Cooper specifically, if we're going off of what we've seen so far, film based off of Duke and everything like that, I think he'll end up starting at the three. I wouldn't be shocked if he starts at the two, so PJ can start as well. But I think he ends up starting at the three because I personally believe that the Mavericks will want to keep Klay Thompson in the starting lineup. I just gave you guys the reports that Cooper has been or did shoot lights out when he worked out with the Mavericks yesterday. But at the end of the day, going into the beginning of this season, the Mavericks don't have a great, well-known NBA shooter outside of Klay Thompson in their starting lineup. If we're going in, say in some random fairyland, the Mavs don't sign any big-time point guard this offseason, and they just draft a rookie. So you're essentially going into the season with Brandon Williams as your starting point guard, maybe Spencer Dinwiddie or Dante Exum. Dante and B. Will, solid shooters, nothing consistent or great that we've seen. Your three's Cooper Flagg. We haven't seen him shoot well on the NBA level yet. Anthony Davis is a wishy-washy three-point shooter. And then obviously Derek Lively. I pray that the Mavs let him shoot threes this year. But again, the only good shooter that you're having in that starting lineup is Klay Thompson. Really good, consistent shooter. Where you look at teams like Oklahoma City Thunder, where Shea can shoot the ball, Jalen Williams can shoot the ball, Chet, Lou Dort. You look at the Wolves, where Anthony Edwards is a capable shooter, or actually probably one of the best shooters in the NBA now. Mike Conley, Julius Randle, and then they have guys like DiVincenzo, and I know Nickeil Alexander-Walker is probably going to leave the Wolves, or a Jaden McDaniels. So I think keeping Klay in the starting lineup is very important, at least until you know that Cooper Flagg is going to be an elite shooter on the NBA level. Until then, you have to keep Klay in the starting lineup. And probably see PJ come off the bench. Again, we don't even know if PJ will want to come off the bench. I do think it's a good sign that I did hear he has been in the Mavericks facility working out still. So hopefully he's willing to do that. Doesn't request a trade or anything like that. But my expectation would probably be that Cooper Flagg starts at the 3 to start next season. Okay, Andy Larsen. We're going to pull this up real quick. Just so I say it all properly. I know things get misaggregated sometimes, as some people like to say. But Andy Larsen, who writes about the Utah Jazz, recently reported, and shout out to my guy, All Things Mavs, that the Dallas Mavericks have emerged as a potential landing spot for Collin Sexton. Andy Larsen is a Utah Jazz and NBA beat writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. This would be really interesting. This is someone that I've been really high on this past month. If you guys have been tuning in to the show, you guys should know by now that I am a big Collin Sexton fan. He brings everything. I have been a Collin Sexton fan since that Alabama game where Alabama, I believe they were playing Vanderbilt, and all of their players either fouled out or were ejected in this big scuffle, and Alabama had to finish the game playing 3-on-5, and it was like you wouldn't have even realized it was a 3-on-5 basketball game because of how hard Collin Sexton was playing. He has that dog in him, as some people would like to say. And he's 26 years old. He's the same age as Brandon Williams. And he just came off last season where he averaged 18.4 points per game, 4.2 assists, 2.7 rebounds, shot 40.6% from three, 48% from the free throw line, and 86.5% from the free throw line. And 48% from the field goal. Excuse me. Just someone who does it all. A very, very solid defender. I saw some people tweeting and talking about the fact that he's never played for a winning team. Well, he was a part of the Cleveland trade when they got Donovan Mitchell. And he's been in Utah now where I don't think you could really blame him for losing. That's just how their roster is structured right now. They're not a winning NBA team. They don't have enough talent for it. And I don't get people's feel for that because if you look at it, PJ Washington came from Charlotte. Daniel Gafford came from Washington. In the same season, the Dallas Mavericks went to the NBA Finals. They were Western Conference Finals champions. So that's not a valid reason. I don't believe in that. I do believe in it if you are the outright star player of a certain team and it just has consistently for years never worked out and you're always, the losing piece of the puzzle. That's not the case with Collin Sexton. And I think Collin Sexton is the type of player that could start at point guard for the Dallas Mavericks and then play a six-man role once Kyrie Irving returns. He's 6'3", 190, so I don't think this is a situation where it's Kyrie at the 1 and Collin at the 2, Coop at the 3. No, I think once the team's healthy, it's Kyrie, Clay, Coop, AD, and Lively. And then there will be times where Collin does finish the game with Kyrie on the floor. This isn't any guard that the Mavericks try to pursue this offseason most likely won't be a guard that is in the starting lineup once Kyrie's healthy. This is someone you want to get a player that can contribute at an elite level right now for you, and once Kyrie Irving returns, is fine with going back to the bench, playing in that 6 or 7-man slot because PJ will also probably on the bench, and is fine with that role, and can give you those minutes when Kyrie's off the court, contribute at an elite level, play with Kyrie sometimes, but just to help fill the void of a 33, 34-year-old guard that is coming off an ACL injury. And I think Collin Sexton fits that perfectly. He's also at the age, too, that once this two timeline closes out with Kyrie and AD, Collin Sexton's going to be in his prime. Collin Sexton's not even going to be 30. So I think this is someone that you could have in Dallas for a very long time if you do end up trading for him. What does that look like? That's been a big debate, and shout out to my guy on X, All Things Mavs. Be sure to check him out. Wrote up a mock trade. Collin Sexton, the Mavs received Collin Sexton, the number 43 overall pick in this year's draft, and the Dallas Mavericks trade away Daniel Gafford and Jaden Hardy. Give you guys a second to process. I responded and said I would do it if it was Collin Sexton in their 21st overall pick in this year's draft for Gafford and Hardy. I think Gafford brings just as much, if not more, value than Sexton. I also don't see a way that Utah would essentially be interested in Gafford unless they are actually trading Walker Kessler this year. I just don't know if I can really believe that because there has been so many Walker Kessler rumors in the last 2 years that it's one of those things where you don't believe it till you see it happen. And that's where I am at on that. But I do think if you can get Collin Sexton, you do it. And this will also carry us into another mock trade that I wanted to talk about. We will talk about it later. Actually, we can talk about it right now. There's been a viral Mavs mock trade that has been going around where, and this is tied in with the Sexton conversation, where the Mavericks would trade away Daniel Gafford for Lonzo Ball in the 12th overall pick. Both very, very interesting deals that could happen. Personally, I like the Collin Sexton one way more. I think it works out way better for Dallas. This is where it all gets interesting because Rafael Barlowe, who is the host of the NBA Locked On Big Board show, talked about the Mavs are interested in seeking another first-round pick. Essentially, that would probably end up being another guard that they would try to draft. So what does that exactly mean? Do they go draft another guard? Or I thought about this. Say the Dallas Mavericks trade away Daniel Gafford, and we can say it's for Collin Sexton or Lonzo Ball. Now let's say both of those guys can stay healthy until Kyrie returns. Again, this is more the health-wise. I'm talking about Lonzo specifically, being hopeful about that. Let's pretend we're on NBA 2K and injuries are turned off. Say those guys stay healthy, but you're still concerned about the fact that it's AD and Lively, and then it's really just Kai Jones, who is a defensive liability. And we love you, DP, but Dwight Powell. You're not as comfortable with your center position as you are now with your guard positions. So, with that other pick that you would get in the NBA draft, this is what I would say. If you could get Collin Sexton or Lonzo Ball in a trade, and also in that trade, either acquire what would be the Bulls' 12th overall pick or the Jazz 21st overall pick, why don't you use that pick to maybe go get a center? Now, there are 3 centers I've specifically looked at in these 2 pick areas that could be available. For number 12 specifically, Derek Queen, which I am iffy about. Derek Queen, who got exposed a lot in his freshman year of college. Defensively, just someone who doesn't have the most quick feet and someone who offensively is a stud. I mean, can score on all 3 levels. The three ball is still a little wishy-washy, but the footwork's beautiful. A very underrated passer. There's flashes where you see a little Sengun in him. Not saying he is going to be a Sengun-esque player or reach his levels of success and stardom in the NBA, but that is someone who's going to be available in that number 12 slot. Someone else who's really stood out for me as well who is also projected to be the 14th overall pick in the NBA draft right now, is Joanne Berenger, a center from France. If you watch film on him, very similar young skill to what Derek Lively had. Not initially a bunch of offensive upside as shot creation, but is an insane shot blocker defensively, can move his feet very well, an insanely great lob threat. And then lastly, the number 17 pick, who I am insanely high on, who I think is going to be a stud in the NBA, who I personally think has the potential to be the next Jalen Duren, is Thomas Sorber, a freshman out of Georgetown. He is 6'9.25" without shoes, with a 7'6" wingspan. And if you go watch film on Thomas Sorber, you will be impressed with every single thing he does on the floor. And why is he projected at 17th? Why is he not projected in the top 10? Well, Thomas Sorber is recovering from a foot injury that he suffered in February, so he has been very limited to what kind of offseason workouts he can do right now. And so I look at this and I say, okay, if the Mavericks were to get the 12th overall pick, they would get Lonzo Ball in that trade probably. So Lonzo can fill that void while Kyrie's out. He can also be someone that comes off the bench, be a great, great, great glue guy. Or you could go the other route where you get Collin Sexton at the 21st in the 21st overall pick and pray and hope that Thomas Sorber is available at 17. Now I know a lot of you guys, and especially me, have been very high on guards like Igor Demon, a Walter Clayton Jr., even a projected early to mid second round pick in Tyrese Proctor, who was also Cooper Flagg's teammate at Duke. Derek Queen was Cooper Flagg's teammate at Montverde Academy in high school in their final years of high school basketball. So it's all going to be interesting how it pans out. I do think the Mavericks would have a higher probability of going for a point guard in this year's draft, but I do think it wouldn't be the craziest thing if the Mavericks went to go select a center in this year's draft. Again, if you get that 12th pick from Chicago or that 21st pick from Utah in a Lonzo Ball or Collin Sexton trade, you could have the opportunity to get a Derek Queen, a Thomas Sorber, or a Danny Wolf, an Asa Newell, again, like we said, Joanne Berger. So I wouldn't keep any of that outside the realm. It's all going to be really interesting to see how it pans out. But guys, stay tuned for more. I appreciate you all for tuning in to this episode. Very, very special guest coming on very soon. A little hint. Someone in actually, I can't say it. I can't ruin it. But just stay tuned because we do have a very special guest coming on soon that I'm very excited about, that will be able to tell you a lot more about the future of the Dallas Mavericks and a specific player that he's very familiar with and has worked with in the past. So that will all be very fun for you guys to see and watch. I appreciate you all for tuning in to Season 3, Episode 7 of the MFFL Nation Show. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button below and stay tuned for more. Thank you guys so much and have a great one.